Hi everyone, this is Mai and welcome again to my channel Fanitation. In today's video, I will be reviewing Payakorn Sornruk or Prophecy of Love, a Thai drama starring James Jirayu and Preechaya. It was first broadcast on the 15th of June 2020 and it has a total of 13 episodes. It was billed as a romantic drama with suspense and action. The story is about Rose, played by Ice, who can see into other people's fates by touching roses that they have touched. So she is at an event where she reads the fates of 6 people, including T-Root, a bad boy superstar played by James Jirayu. After that, someone tries to kill her. So T-Root, or T, is the first suspect because he is publicly known to dislike her very much because of something that happened previously. But in the end, he becomes the one to help her track down who this would-be assassin is. So on my personal scale of James G dramas that I like watching, I would rate Payakorn Sornruk at 7 out of 10. To be very honest, when I first thought of doing this review, I thought that Payakorn Sornruk would rank much lower on this scale, like maybe 9 or 10. But as I was reviewing my material and my tweets, I realized that I really had a very good time while I was watching the show. I think this is one of those shows that maybe doesn't hold up to rewatching. So first, I'll talk about the good things in this show. Of course, I have to start with James, who plays T. I thought he did a good acting job in this show, but overall, I wouldn't say that it was an outstanding role for him. His best scenes were probably with his mum and with the little girl Ravi. He also had some very good interactions with the other characters. It was kind of the standard that we expect of James at this point. T is quite an adorable character. You know, he can act, he can fight, he can save women, he can sort of cook and look cute and sexy at the same time. He adores his family, he can braid hair, he can arrange flowers. I mean, there's a lot to love about T-Root. Then we come to the female lead, Rose, played by Ice. I thought her acting was fine. It wasn't outstandingly good. It wasn't bad at all. But I think Ice is known very much for her comedic roles, and I was a little bit disappointed that this role didn't show more of it. The chemistry between James and Ice, I thought, was really very good and very natural. There wasn't any of this suddenly falling in love for no rhyme or reason kind of thing. You could see how their relationship developed and how he starts to fall for her and how she starts to trust in him. I thought it was very well played out. They had some of the most believable kisses for me because they both looked as if they were enjoying it, like they really felt something for each other, which I don't always feel in all of his dramas. The other thing I really loved about this drama was how they portrayed the family and the extended family. It was really lovely to see how this community grew and supported each other. It was very endearing and it was really very much part of the core of the story. I also love the portrayal of the relationship between Ruji and Marissa, Rose's mom, played by Dee Chanana. And I thought that it was very refreshing to have a drama where women could get together and support each other and not just be at each other's throats. Now I'll come to some of the roles that I particularly liked. I have to mention Rungrada, the little girl that played T. Ravi. I'm always a little bit wary of child actors because they can be very precocious, you know, the toddlers and tiaras kind with the overdone hair and too much makeup, and they have this very artificial way of acting. And she just blew me away. She was so natural. All her interactions with the adults were just so on point. She behaved like a normal child would. She was very cute without being cutesy. And when she was sad, she was so realistic that you really wanted to cry for her. She was so good. I also really loved Ruji, T's mom, played by Apasri. Some of you will remember her as Itirit's mother from Raksutrit. And boy, this is a whole 180 degrees from that show. She is a very warm and calm and compassionate and wise and just wonderful mother. So there were two other romantic pairings in this show. The first was Chang, played by Mai Warit, who is T's best friend, and Ran, played by Ben's Kamonjanok, who is T's sister. So Mai Warit was wonderful in this role. And Paa'jaew, the director, mentioned that even though Mai is actually a leading man in his own right, he agreed to do this role, which is sort of like the second lead. Now his pairing with Ben's was a little bit rocky because I think he is a much better and more experienced actor than she is. She is quite a new actress. So for a lot of the beginning of the show, she kind of had like one expression, but that did develop in the end. And at the end, I was really rooting for Chang and Ran. So the second supporting pair was Koei, played by Sin Payakorn, and Paul, played by Paa'jaew. Sin is a delight as Koei. She is so bubbly and sweet, and she played the role so well. So Pop is a new actor, and Paa'jaew did introduce him and say that, oh, he's the new James Jirayu. He's not. He was so wooden and he was so stiff throughout the entire show that, I really couldn't like his character very much, even though there's nothing really wrong with him. And I still had some difficulty getting behind Koei and Paul at the end when they get together, because in my heart I thought that Koei deserved someone so much better. The last thing I wanted to mention that I really loved in this drama was Ruji's gorgeous cafe garden. It was actually filmed in a real cafe garden called Little Tree Garden. It is so charming and so beautiful, and all the cakes and desserts that she makes are so drool-worthy, and it had such a charm and such a warmth because this was supposed to be the family's safe haven. Okay, now to come to all the problems I had with this drama. So Payakorn Sornruk was shown quite soon after Leban Pakan or Mist of Love ended, and I thought that there were so many similarities in the way the two dramas were structured. They both had very complicated storylines, and they were both suspenseful and had action, and it was sort of like a cast of characters and then one story unraveling after another. So the two Noon's stories, Noon Daran as Nantawadi and Noon Ramida as Laila, were a little bit long drawn, and in actual fact didn't really add to the central narrative. You could have cut out both their stories and it would still kind of have worked. So the three remaining characters who had had their fates read by Rose were Rin, played by Preechaya, whom I love, and Thanapon, played by Pech Krunapon, and Butikon, played by Jap Penpech. This storyline was a lot tighter and had more to do with the entire narrative, but my god, it was such a dark storyline. I felt so uncomfortable watching it, and until today, if I watch certain parts of the show, I need to fast forward because I don't really want to go into that headspace anymore. And after the intensity of Leban Pakan, which really toyed with our emotions, I had really just hoped for a nice light comedy, which I think James and Ice would have really excelled at. My second problem with this show, which I think many fans had a problem with, was the styling. As Rose, she was like the United Colors of Benetton. The shades of her hair kept changing from, dark blonde to orange to dark red to dark brown, and the length kept changing. It would be straight one minute and curly another minute, and it was so distracting and made you wonder whether this production had a continuity manager. The second thing was the clothing. So T is supposed to be this mega superstar, and it's not that mega superstars need to be in branded clothes all the time, but his clothing was so boring. It really looked as if he was largely dressed by Uniqlo. It's just that James is so beautiful that you can put him in anything and he looks good, but the styling could have been improved by a lot. And he can go incognito all over the place with just a pair of sunglasses and a hat, and amazingly, nobody recognizes him and nobody chases after him. But having said that, I really enjoyed the scenes where he was dressed up in a policeman's uniform when he was filming the drama within a drama, because he looks really hot there. So the thing is that the styling for everybody else was generally fine. Not spectacular, but it kind of worked. But the dressing for Ice was just terrible. The best outfit that she has was right at the beginning in the rose garden, where she's wearing that deep salmon colored dress. The rest of the styling was just horrible. Her clothing looked so cheap and frumpy. And in the scene where she's supposed to be wearing a designer dress by Lila, that dress was just so awful and gaudy. It looked as if a flower basket had just vomited all over her. And it was even more unbelievable because Lila was supposed to have designed it, but Lila herself is always elegantly dressed all in black. She would not have designed this monstrosity. So my only conclusion is that a man with no taste was in charge of the wardrobe for this particular scene. I'm sorry to be so mean, but I really hated that dress and I thought it overpowered poor Ice. So what happened to the budget for this show that they couldn't style the leading lady better? I have certain theories. One is that they spent far too much of the budget on the rose garden scene. Paa'jaew has famously talked about how, they had I don't know how many thousands of roses and 200 extras. So I thought that was such a waste of the budget, like spend it on your leading lady for goodness sake. So as I said at the beginning of this drama, I really enjoyed watching it the first time round, but with each rewatching, the flaws in the show became more and more apparent and I really couldn't ignore them. I didn't think this was a very good script for James, and I know that he has a very tight personal relationship with Paa'jaew because Paa'jaew was the first one to give him his break as Kunchai Putipat. But I hope that he is more selective in his roles from now on, because he has gotten to this level that he really shouldn't be doing something if the script is not top-notch, because that is what he deserves in order to show his acting ability. So before I end, I'll just tell you that there was a very nice interview with Paa'jaew and James and Ice on today's show, and we have subbed that in English and I will link it in the description box. So what is my final conclusion about this show? Well, if you are a fan of James or Ice, then I would say watch it because it is really quite sweet and enjoyable if you turn off your brain and don't have very high expectations, because there are some really lovely moments in this show. So that's it for this review. I hope you've enjoyed it and thank you for staying with me till now. Take care and stay safe everyone. Bye.